Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy. In today's video, we are going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft from the 6th overall spot on YahooFantasy.com. Inside of this video, we are going to be talking about my thought process throughout each of my picks in this draft, as well as my feeling to other picks that go around me in this draft, and just talk about my overall feelings throughout this draft. If you guys are new to my channel and you end up enjoying this video, want to see more mock drafts and more other content all around fantasy football, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, there is 30 seconds left, so I just wanted to give you guys a quick just note before we get into it that my logo has changed, my header has changed, my Twitter header has changed, and that is because Matt, or @4NDRULIS, has made me this new look for my channel. I hope you guys like how this looks. Let me know what you guys think about the new logo as well as the new header on my channel down below in the comment section. I would appreciate if you guys thanked him on Twitter for doing this, or maybe even shot him a follow. I'm sure he would appreciate it, and I appreciate him making this new logo greatly. So let's get into it. The first pick of the draft for today's video was Christian McCaffrey, followed by Dalvin Cook. That is very typical. A typical 1-2 punch for the start of the draft is going to be Christian McCaffrey, followed by Dalvin Cook. If I'm being honest with you, that's probably what's going to happen in a majority of leagues. The number 3 overall spot is where the draft starts opening up. A variety of players can go here. It might be Derrick Henry, it might be Saquon Barkley, it might be Alvin Kamara, it may be Jonathan Taylor. People have all types of different thought process at the number 3 overall spot. They went with Derrick Henry. I think that Derrick Henry is a very safe pick overall. I talked about him in yesterday's video, the safest running backs to be drafting for fantasy football in 2021, strictly based upon the amount of volume that Derrick Henry is going to be seeing in the rushing game. It's crazy that in fantasy football, which the game depends so much in half PPR and full PPR based off of these running backs that can catch passes, and he can't do that at all, and he is still so dominant. That's what's so crazy about him. After Derrick Henry, we see Saquon Barkley, another running back that I can see people taking at the number 3 overall pick. I am not too worried at all about the injury going into the season. I think Saquon Barkley should be fine. After that, we see Alvin Kamara, and now we are back up on the board. And now it is the question of which one of these running backs is who you feel the most comfortable taking right now at pick number 6. Now, normally I go with Aaron Jones, but I want to talk about a different running back in this video. So we're going to go with Ezekiel Elliott, running back of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, my belief on Aaron Jones, why I normally take him, is because I feel as though Aaron Jones is in such a good offense if Aaron Rodgers ends up playing. Now, if Aaron Rodgers ends up going to become a professional PGA golf player after we saw his performance up against Tampa Bay Tom Brady a couple of days ago, or he decides to be the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, or he just decides to flat out retire, then Aaron Jones, you're going to take him and you're going to throw him back in the draft. Now, it doesn't make Aaron Jones irrelevant, but it definitely does not make him a first round pick, and I normally take him because I believe that if Rodgers is the guy, he's going to be scoring a bunch of touchdowns, a bunch of points, because of how good the Packers are. But I went with Ezekiel Elliott this time. The reason why I like Ezekiel Elliott so much is that a lot of last year and his downplay, now it wasn't necessarily a bust last season, right? Because to bust, he would have had to completely flame out and play like shit. But even without Dak Prescott being healthy, and with the offensive line not being as good as it has been in the past for the Dallas Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott was still able to play well. Now, my thoughts are that Dak Prescott is going to be able to stay healthy, and that this offense is going to look so much better in 2021. Plus, the defense can't be much worse, so maybe they'll have to run the ball a little bit more in the games, because maybe the defense won't choke away any ounce of a lead that they could have. After Ezekiel Elliott comes Tyreek Hill, followed by Jonathan Taylor, 9-inch Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler, Stephon Diggs, Cam Akers, Travis Kelce, Najee Harris, and Devontae Adams. Very, very different to see Travis Kelce fall into the second round, because in a lot of best ball drafts I do, he goes in the first round, but in a lot of mock drafts I'm doing on Yahoo, he's a second round pick. So I'd be very interested to see where his average draft position is by the time you're drafting in August or in early September, because I have a feeling he's going to be a first round pick in a lot of leagues. Looking at the running backs here, I don't necessarily love any of these guys in the second round. I do like J.K. Dobbins, but I'm going to elect this time to go with a wide receiver, and we're going to cast our net and draft wide receiver Deandre DeAndre Hopkins of the Arizona Cardinals, a player that I haven't really talked about too much recently at all this offseason. Going into last season, I was one of DeAndre Hopkins' biggest haters. I wasn't necessarily saying that this guy was going to suck in real life, right? But I was thinking, you know what? Maybe he has a down year because he's going from the Texans to the Arizona Cardinals in a COVID offseason, and I thought that maybe it would take a little bit of time for him to get that connection with Kyler, right? But that was wrong. He fucking joins the team, and he has 5G cell service with Kyler Murray. Him and Kyler Murray are dominating. He makes that crazy-ass catch in the end zone through a million defenders and catches it. Looking back at it, I feel like an idiot, but you can't really go back and change my mind. I thought the thought process was correct. It just turned out to be absolutely wrong, but I am very happy getting DeAndre Hopkins here in the second round, as I feel like he has a very solid chance to finish as a top 5 wide receiver yet again. After Hopkins comes Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and J.K. Dobbins. Very interesting to see DK Metcalf go so high in drafts when I am very wary about DK Metcalf. Not really because of his skill set, but there is a potential for them to try to start running the ball even more because that's just Pete Carroll. That's just what Pete Carroll does. It's in his fucking DNA, is run the goddamn football. Unless you're on the 1 yard line in the Super Bowl, then you try and pass it. But with that said, DK Metcalf put up a good year, but what happens if Lockett starts lighting it up and then Metcalf is kind of, you know, doing what Lockett did a lot last year, where Lockett has this huge game, then he's bad. Huge game. I kind of worry a bit about DK Metcalf and the Seattle offense when it comes to the pass-catching attack, but I love me some Chris Carson. After DK came Clyde Edwards-Helaire and J.K. Dobbins to close out the second round. The third round begins with Terry McLaurin, Chris Carson, and A.J. Brown. Now, normally, when I'm drafting, I'm looking to get 2 running backs right in a row in the first 2 rounds, but when you're doing a mock draft, you know what you're trying to do? To experience a lot of things. You're trying to figure out a bunch of different ways that you could do your draft. So you gotta experiment different ways in mock drafts and not always draft the same way. That's why we're experimenting here, and we went with a wide receiver in the second round, whereas normally I go with the 1-2 punch in the first and second round and then look for the wide receivers in the third and fourth round. So we're about to be up yet again, and looking at the board right now, I'm not too in love with any of these running backs right now, so we're probably just gonna go ahead and dive our head into the wide receiver core here and select one of Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, or Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin. To me, there's really only three picks here. That's Julio, Michael Thomas, or Keenan Allen. If you're trying to be safe, you probably want to go with Keenan Allen. If you're feeling a little bit more dangerous, you can go with Michael Thomas. Now, I don't think Michael Thomas is, in reality, a super dangerous pick, but there is some risk that comes with Jameis Winston being the starting quarterback of your team. But I do think that Michael Thomas returns to the former ways of playing. In 2019, this guy was undoubtedly the best wide receiver in fantasy football. He was catching everything. He was getting 1 million receptions, 1 million targets every single game. And last year, it all fell apart. He gets hurt. He has a fight with his teammate, I believe. They bench him. All types of crazy stuff was happening for the New Orleans Saints. For Michael Thomas to just have a bad season, but I think he will return to maybe not the 2019 season, right, where he finishes as the #1 wide receiver. But don't be surprised if Michael Thomas is easily up there in the top 3 again, because he, to me, is one of the biggest steals in fantasy drafts right now. I understand that there is a slight risk with Jameis Winston, but in the third round, the price you're paying for Michael Thomas, for a guy who could literally easily be a top 5 wide receiver, top 3 wide receiver, maybe even the #1 overall wide receiver, I'm very happy taking him here inside of the third round. After I went with Michael Thomas came Patty Mahomes, Josh Allen, George Kittle, and Keenan Allen. It's very interesting in every draft. I bring this up in every mock draft where quarterbacks are going to go. In some leagues, Patrick Mahomes may not get taken until the 5th round. People are more safe in some leagues. They want to wait on quarterback. That's typically my strategy. But in other leagues, someone takes Patrick Mahomes in the 1st round, and then someone takes Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. It's pretty interesting also to see what the order of quarterbacks goes in these drafts, because I feel like Patrick Mahomes is like the unanimous #1 guy off the board. But after that, I see Josh Allen sometimes. You see Kyler other times. Some people love Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott. All these guys can come off the board as the #2 overall quarterback. Lamar Jackson. Personally, I would lean Josh Allen. So technically that's the right move for Mr. Mitch 13, but I am not someone who wants to draft a quarterback this early. After George Kittle comes Keenan Allen, David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Darren Waller, Amari Cooper, and Josh Jacobs. I'm pretty disappointed that Darren Waller did not fall my way into the 4th round, but if I really wanted Waller, I probably should have pulled the trigger where I was in the 3rd round, knowing that most of the time in fantasy football drafts, he is a 3rd round pick, and that is because, in my opinion, he's beat out Kittle. He's better than Kittle because of the fact that Darren Waller hasn't really suffered many injuries, and I know what Derek Carr does in this offense is throw the ball to Darren Waller, whereas who knows what's going to happen once it turns into Trey Lance in San Francisco. So we're about to be back up on the board here. We already have a bunch of wide receivers, but the running backs here, they're not looking the greatest. These aren't necessarily the guys that I want to be drafting to be my running back number 2. That's why I kind of go running back early, but right now, I don't see much value in drafting a Chase Edmonds, a Kareem Hunt. Sure, Kareem Hunt is ultra safe, but I want to go ahead and get another wide receiver to play at my flex spot. This is not what we normally do in drafts, so it's interesting again when you mock draft to look at a different strategy. So here, we're going to be going with Julio Jones, wide receiver of the Tennessee Titans. Now, between him and Robert Woods, I have them ranked oh so close in my rankings, and it's basically a coin flip. Sure, Julio Jones ended up getting hurt last year, but over his whole NFL career, this guy has been nothing but the definition of safety. You look up safety on the internet, you can find a picture of Julio Jones, and you should be looking for a picture of fucking some Trojan condoms or something, but no, you get a picture of Julio Jones because this guy is always a top 10 wide receiver. He could be a top 5 wide receiver, and in Tennessee, with such a high-powered offense, you would believe that as long as there's no injury to Julio Jones, that he is going to potentially be able to produce and be that top 10 guy. I understand he's getting up there in age, but it's not like he's 45 years old or something. He's still a prime wide receiver in the NFL. I love me some Julio Jones, and I think he's a steal in the 4th round. So right now, our roster, if you had this roster last year coming out of the draft, your pants would be soiled. They'd be so sticky down there because you have Julio, D-Hop, Michael Thomas, and Ezekiel Elliott. Those are all 1st-round picks last season, but because of what happens, they move further down in 2021, and now you're getting a great steal with Michael Thomas as well as with Julio Jones. So looking at the draft board, after we went ahead and drafted Julio Jones, came CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, and Robert Woods. It's very interesting to see where Lamb and Amari Cooper end up going because in a lot of people's rankings, they're starting to rank CeeDee Lamb ahead of Amari Cooper. I think it's going to take Amari Cooper leaving to have that tremendous, amazing year for CeeDee Lamb, right? I think Lamb's going to be good. I think he has top 12 potential. But Lamb could be like the number 1 overall wide receiver in fantasy football once Amari Cooper is gone, in my opinion, because of how good this offense is with Dak Prescott. After CeeDee Lamb came DJ Moore, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen, Cooper Kupp, and Kyler Murray. It is also fun to see what happens after someone takes a quarterback in like the 5th round, because normally at this point, the runs start to begin. Someone takes Kyler, then someone behind him panics, and then you start seeing a run at the quarterback position. It also happens at tight ends around this range as well. The big 3 at the tight end position are gone. Kelsey, Kittle, and Waller, and now the floodgates might get opened by that TJ Hockenson pick. You might see Mark Andrews fly off the board, Dallas Goedert, all those kind of guys in that range, but we haven't seen it yet, so maybe these guys are a little bit tame on hopping on the runs. After Kyler Murray comes TJ Hockenson, as well as Chase Edmonds. We're about to be back up on the board here, and I'm glad I didn't go running back because I'm still pretty confident that if Mike Davis falls to me, I would be very happy selecting him at this spot. I like Mike Davis a lot because of the fact that I think he is the clear workhorse in Atlanta. Now, I should probably stop talking about him for a second because every time you talk about a player, you put him in your queue, I feel like you just get sniped. I don't know if that's some type of superstition or something, but it seems as though every time I'm in a draft, I put the player in my queue, boom, they get picked instantly. So we're going to talk about Melvin Gordon real quick. Now, it's interesting to see what people think about this backfield because I personally believe that Melvin Gordon is good enough to withstand the Javonte Williams onslaught that a lot of people believe is coming. And I don't necessarily mean that you need to draft Melvin Gordon because I don't think he's really all that draftable. But what I think is they're going to be putting this two-headed backfield butt-fucking of your fantasy football roster. So I don't really want anything to do with either of them because it will take an injury to either Gordon or Williams. Knock on wood, we don't hope for injuries for either of them to come out of the season being actually really good, because I think that the Denver Broncos like to run that double-headed backfield. They like to give the carries to both guys. They like to share the load like you're watching a video on the other tube. So hopefully you guys understand what I'm talking about there, just about the fact that it's not really going to be one or the other. It's going to be a double orgy backfield running back by committee. So we went with Mike Davis because, like I was kind of talking about before, since I didn't want to jinx myself, Mike Davis looks like he could be the workhorse running back in this backfield. There's really no one behind him that can even rival taking his job. I understand he's getting up there in age, and some people might say, oh, I don't want to draft a 28, 29-year-old running back in Mike Davis, but I say, you know what, if this offense is pretty good, if Mike Davis is able to play just slightly worse, if he plays slightly worse than he played in Carolina when Christian McCaffrey's out, this guy's a top 15 running back, and he is going inside of the 5th round. To me, that is a steal, especially for a player that is so talented in the pass-catching game as well. That's why it was so crucial last year to pick up Mike Davis, because he filled that hole perfectly in Carolina. So after I went ahead and drafted Mr. Mike Davis, we see that Deontay Johnson came off the board, followed by Mark Andrews, Tyler Lockett, Dak Prescott, Brandon Ayuk, and Melvin Gordon to close out the 5th round. Now, there was not necessarily a run at quarterback or tight end, but we did see 3 quarterbacks go in this round, as well as 2 tight ends. We are about 15-ish minutes into this video, so if you guys did end up enjoying thus far, I really do encourage you to hit that subscribe button down below. It helps me out a whole ton, and make sure if you have enjoyed to hit that like button as well. After Melvin Gordon came Kenny Golidae and James Robinson to open up the 6th round. I'm going to be talking about Kenny Golidae in tomorrow's video being one of the safest wide receivers for fantasy football. The reason why I feel like he's safe is because he's just going to be a top 24 wide receiver, right? I'm not in love with the upside of Kenny Golidae because I don't like Daniel Jones, but I would be hard-pressed to see Kenny Golidae fall outside the top 24. He could even probably finish if Daniel Jones really does good as a top 12 wide receiver, so I find him to be a pretty decent value where he's going. Not the most upside pick, but certainly feels pretty safe. After Kenny Golidae, we see James Robinson followed by Damian Harris, Javonte Williams, and Deebo Samuel. Damian Harris definitely would have been our pick here if he was still there, but obviously he's not, so we're not really looking at running back here. I'm not sold in. I do like Raheem Mostert, but the 6th round seems like a very high price to pay for him. At wide receiver, I thought I clicked on that, but I want to look at tight ends here. Dallas Goedert, Noah Fant, Kyle Pitts, Tyler Higbee. I don't really love that, so I'm going to draft a backup wide receiver here and snag some immense upside for this roster in case any of these guys go down, and I'm going to be going with Chase Claypool, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers. While I would say that one of my guys, one of the guys that I'm putting my stamp of approval on going into the 2021 fantasy football season, it's his teammate, Deontay Johnson, but I still like the value of Chase Claypool, who put up a whole bunch of touchdowns last season, scoring 9 touchdowns, had 873 receiving yards, had a whole lot of targets last season, and I think that this offense is still going to be trying to throw the ball at such a high level because of the fact that the offensive line is non-existent there in Pittsburgh, and that typically means that you're going to have to pass the ball more, which should bode well for Mr. Chase Claypool, 2nd-year breakout candidate this season. After I went with Chase Claypool came Leonard Fournette. After Leonard Fournette came Dallas Goedert. I do like Dallas Goedert a whole lot. I'm just not sure I want to pay the 6th round price yet, because we have not seen Zach Ertz leave yet. For some reason, there's been all this fucking woo-hoo, all this commotion about Zach Ertz leaving and going to Buffalo, but it hasn't happened yet, so I do not know what is happening there. Maybe they'll just cut him. I think Dallas Goedert is going to be great, though, with Jalen Hurts, as long as Ertz is gone. After Dallas Goedert came Russell Wilson, Odell Beckham Jr., and Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts in drafts is such a polarizing player because in some drafts, maybe I'm using the word incorrectly, but in some drafts, this motherfucker is like a 3rd or 4th round pick, and then other drafts, you see him go in the 6th round, the 7th round, so it's very interesting every single draft to see where he goes, because some people think that Kyle Pitts is going to put up these crazy ass numbers, which I just don't see. I think Kyle Pitts is going to be great for fantasy football, but he would have to have the greatest rookie year a tight end has ever had in the NFL to really pay that like 4th, 5th round price that some people are drafting him at. Here in the 6th round, the end of the 6th round, basically the 7th round, I'm fine. I'm tipping the cap at that. Go ahead and take Kyle Pitts there. I like the upside out of a tight end who basically people are comparing to Calvin Johnson, so you got to be somewhat good if that's what they're comparing you to. So after Kyle Pitts comes Robbie Anderson, Aaron Rodgers, Mr. Discount, Double Check, and Noah Fant. This guy went with the stack of Dallas Goedert and Jalen Hurts. Aaron Rodgers, man, it's so crazy because I feel like Rodgers is going to... We're not going to know what's going to be happening with Rodgers, I feel like, until near the middle of August. I don't think during training camp we'll know. I think it's going to take until August. It's going to be a strong holdout, and then eventually he's going to give way and start playing quarterback there. After Jalen Hurts came Tyler Higbee. So now we got to definitely take a shot on a running back here, especially with the fact that, sure, I'm pretty sold on Mike Davis, but if we continue to keep waiting, it is going to get down tremendous here when looking at running back. So we're going to go ahead and snag Raheem Mostert here. I think he has a whole lot of upside to be the running back 1 on this team. He should be, right now, he should be listed as the running back 1 because Trey Sermon is obviously younger, Raheem Mostert is the veteran, and Raheem Mostert has shown off a lot of talent at the running back position in previous seasons. Now, does that mean that he's gonna be the running back all year? Probably not. Probably not, because of how that Kyle Shanahan runs this offense. If Raheem Mostert plays well, then he's the running back for the game. But the next week, they'll try Raheem Mostert. If Raheem Mostert looks bad, then they'll put in Trey Sermon. If Trey Sermon doesn't work, they'll put in Trey Lance at running back. They'll put in Kyle Juszczyk. They'll put in anyone at running back. They give everyone a chance. They use the full-on running back by orgy. They let everyone take a snap at that ball. They even let the water boy go in there and try to run the ball. So if Raheem Mostert's able to win this job, though, with how run-heavy the San Francisco 49ers are, it would be really, really good to draft him in the 7th round. That's really my thought process behind that. You could also have went with the other running back, Ronald Jones, but I think he's also in a confusing backfield with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But at least Kyle Shanahan, you kind of know what's happening. You're like, you know what? Raheem Mostert had a great game. He should at least be getting first licks next week, right? He should be getting the first go at it. But with Bruce Arians and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Leonard Fournette will tear it up, and then the next week, Leonard Fournette just drops one ball, and this guy is exiled, voted off the island like he's in Survivor, and Ronald Jones is playing, and then at the end of that game, it'll be like, Ronald Jones is the guy next week, and then guess what? It's not his week at all. It's back to Leonard Fournette. It's up and down. If you guys remember, Leonard Fournette had an amazing playoffs run, but during the season, a lot of the games that mattered were Ronald Jones, so it's very, very confusing there in that backfield. It's going to make you claw your hair out, but at the end of the day, it's probably worth an 8th round pick. In case something was to happen to the other player, you probably have a top 12 running back. After Raheem Mostert came Mike Gesicki, T. Higgins, A.J. Dillon, DJ Chark, Justin Herbert, the pervert, Tom Brady, the LA Rams defense, Jerry Jeudy, and Cortland Sutton. I'm starting to really start liking A.J. Dillon. Now, in the 7th round is a bit crazy because A.J. Dillon's not going to show any fantasy relevance, in my opinion, unless Aaron Jones was to go down. But if Aaron Jones goes down, he's probably like a top 12 running back because of how talented he is. But without an injury, I don't really see that much of a path to having a lot of work in this offense. And if Rodgers is gone, then I don't even know what to think, because what happens with Jordan Love and all this shit, I don't really know. But at the end of the day, I do like A.J. Dillon. After that, we see David Johnson and Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is also a pick that I like a lot in the 8th round, because while we don't really know what's happening with Deshaun Watson, we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be. What I do know is drafting the wide receiver 1 on a team this late is definitely worth it. Looking at our roster, we have 3 running backs. We have 4 wide receivers. So I'm going to go ahead and draft another running back. A good rule of thumb by the end of your draft is to have more running backs than wide receivers, because it's hard to find a running back off the waiver wire later on in the season, or at any point in the season, that you can start your roster and actually feel comfortable about. But for wide receiver, you can fucking close your eyes and go like this, and you find a wide receiver on the waiver wire you can add, they probably get you like 10 points. Any given week, there's those guys. But at running back, unless there's an injury, it's very hard to find that. Very nice for Ronald Jones to have a ADP of 69. Very nice. I like Ronald Jones. Okay, so sorry about my Borat accent right there. That was definitely not the best one I've done recently. So, bunch of defenses going in the 8th round. That's just what happens when people start to leave the mock drafts and you see a lot of computer players in here. Now, even in a normal league, if you're drafting with not the sharpest of individuals, not the fucking sharpest knife in the cupboard or whatever that saying is, then you're to see defenses go in the 8th round. You're to see kickers go in the 9th round. So don't be surprised because they filled out the roster. Now they're hopping on the defense and kicker train. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total quarterbacks off the board. Me and someone else do not have a quarterback, so I'm going to continue to wait. Justin Tucker, the fucker, off the board. Michael Carter off the board. He would have been a solid pick there too in the 8th round if I'm being honest with you. If you want a more... Is it really safe, though, right now? He's on the Jets, so that's just one reason to be a little bit worried. But he could really easily be the lead running back there and just score a bunch of fantasy points. But again, he's on the Jets, and I don't really see the Jets scoring that many points. But maybe I'm wrong. Without Adam Gase, the biggest dumbass head coach to ever grace the... You know what's crazy about Adam Gase, real quick, before we pick? This man lost his NFL job, and now he's coaching at a high school. But guess what? He's not even the head coach of this high school team. This motherfucker is the offensive coordinator. He couldn't even get a high school head coaching job. That's a little bit embarrassing. Looking at quarterbacks here, we're just going to wait. We're going to go with a wide receiver here with some upside. We're going to go with Jamar Chase. Now, I'm not in love with Jamar Chase as finishing as the wide receiver 1 for rookies. Wookiee wide receivers. Oh, fucking Chewbacca over here. That's what Jamar Chase is. He's basically Chewbacca, I guess. But I don't know if he's necessarily going to finish as the wide receiver 1 for rookies in fantasy football because he's in a crowded room, right? But he was teammates with Joe Burrow in college. He should be getting a lot of targets. And the fact that this team is going to have to throw a lot in games because the defense sucks so much ass, it should bode well for Jamar Chase. So I'm fine taking the upside shot on him. He's not really going to be a starter in my roster, but against some plus matchups, I could see Jamar Chase cracking into my lineup. We should probably draft a tight end relatively soon because tight ends really start to fall off. I'm fine taking like quarterback 15, 16 to be my starting quarterback, but tight end 15, 16, you are going to be drafting 2 tight ends now because you're taking 2 upside shots and you're confused. At least with Robert Tonyan, Logan Thomas, Irv Smith, I feel somewhat confident that they're going to do something every single week. Whereas if I have like Janu Smith or Hunter Henry, how is anyone in their right mind even drafting either of these guys? Because every single week, this isn't the Tom Brady, Aaron Hernandez, fucking Rob Gronkowski offense. This is Cam Newton. Cam Newton, who looked like he couldn't throw the pigskin to save his life last year. With these 2 tight ends. What makes me like that? Nothing. Nothing. Unless Mac Jones plays them, maybe I'll feel confident. I'm not even a Cam Newton hater. I like watching Cam Newton. He's very fun. But he just looked like he lost it last year. We are back up on the board here, and we haven't really drafted this guy in a lot of drafts yet. I think I went with Logan Thomas last time, so we're going to go with Robert Tonyan, tight end of the Green Bay Packers. A lot of his points last year came from those touchdowns, so buyers beware. Especially if Rodgers is gone, there's no way I'm taking Robert Tonyan. Well, I'm still going to take Tonyan over all these guys, right? But I wouldn't feel as confident in it as I do right now because my assumption, again, is that Aaron Rodgers is going to decide that he wants to be a Green Bay Packer because that's his best shot of winning the Super Bowl. At least in my mind, maybe the Broncos do have a great defense. They would be a great team for him to go to. I'm not going to lie, but my dream of Horsecock Drew Lock playing well is still alive right now as long as he continues to be the starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos. After I went with Robert Tonyan came Kenyon Drake and Tyler Boyd. Like I said, a bunch of kickers went inside of the 9th round, which is weird, but it's also not that weird when you think about it because some people in fantasy drafts just want to get the kicker out of the way. They want to fill out their roster, and then they look at the bench after, whereas you need to understand, which most of you guys do, I'd assume probably all of you guys do that are watching videos in July about fantasy football. You're not cramming 3 days before the draft. You're watching right now. You know that all you got to do is fill out the bench. You don't have to draft your quarterback super early. You don't have to draft the tight end super early. You definitely don't have to draft a kicker or a defense early. You can fill out the bench. You get the kicker and the defense in the last 2 rounds, and you'll be very happy. I'm going to share with you guys my trick on drafting defenses, which is just drafting a defense, playing a shitty offense week 1. Looking for a team that'll have turnovers, have fumbles, have sacks, and then boom, you draft that defense. And then the next week, if they have a hard opponent, you just cut them, you X them out. And then the next week, you start a new defense. And I make videos every single week. There'll be a video for week 1, which defenses to draft. And then every other week after that is defenses to stream. Week 2, week 3, week 4, all the way through 17. So you guys can have the best defense every single week of your fantasy football season. After Logan Thomas came Naheem Hines, Devin Singletary, Joey Burrow, and Latavius Murray. It is now time to draft a quarterback because people have officially started drafting 2 quarterbacks, and that worries me big time. So looking at the board here, we got Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, the safest pick here is Matt Ryan because Matt Ryan's always a guy that you can make the argument for finishing as a top 12 quarterback in fantasy football. Why is that? That is because of the fact that he is just always throwing the ball at an unprecedented rate because the defense has always, except for that nice Super Bowl run that they made that they choked away, the defense normally sucks. And with a bad defense, you have to throw the ball late in the game. Matt Ryan's going to need Tommy John surgery by the time he's done with his career because he's throwing the ball so much. But every single year, he's like top 5 in passing attempts. So I do feel pretty confident in him late. But he definitely doesn't have any rushing upside at all because Matt Ryan is a certified statue behind the offensive line. Obviously, if you wanted to wait a little bit later, you can get a guy like Trevor Lawrence, get a guy like Tua Tagovailoa with a lot of upside. I'd be fine drafting either of those guys a little bit later. Deshaun Watson will be the biggest steal of every single best ball league if he actually plays this year. But again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what happened. So I have no idea when we will know about Deshaun Watson or if he will even touch the field this season because he might just be suspended for the whole season. I frankly have no idea right now. This is going to be one of the bigger that thing was huge news. The Deshaun Watson, where is he going to get traded to? He wants out of Houston. And then that all stopped once that, all that stuff happened. Which isn't a great look for Deshaun Watson. If he did do it, he's a complete asshole. I've said this a million times. Fuck Deshaun Watson if he did it. If he didn't do it, then it's terrible in the opposite way. So let's hope that we can figure out what happened with Deshaun Watson so we can actually declare what to do with them in drafts. Because if he plays, he's probably like a top 5 quarterback, which will make him a humongous steal this late in drafts. But by the time you're drafting, we probably will be able to know what's happening with Watson. Same thing goes with Aaron Rodgers. After Irv Smith came the Tampa Bay defense, Devontae Parker. You like that? Kirk Cousins, Corey Davis, Rob Gronkowski, and Marvin Jones. We are 2 picks away here. I got my quarterback. I'm not drafting 2 quarterbacks because I'm pretty confident in Matt Ryan. I think the more upside shot, though, would have been Trevor Lawrence because we might see a crazy amount of rushing yards from him, which isn't what everyone is predicting, but he does have some pretty nice legs. He also has some nice luscious hair, Mr. Trevor Lawrence. So we're back up on the board in a pick here. We need another running back on this team, maybe even 2 more running backs for the upside in our roster. Tariq Cohen is a guy that I'm just not targeting at all, but you want to know who I am targeting? The guy one above him, Jamal with 2 A's, Williams, running back of the Detroit Lions, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, a former cheesehead. This guy is being looked at right now, according to the beat reporters, as the running back 1B in Detroit, which sounds great on any team. Detroit would be one of the worst teams to be the 1B. Why is that? Because the defense sucks, the offense is going to suck, and they're going to have to throw late in games. They're not going to be able to run. But hey, being the 1B on any team provides some value, especially in the 12th round. And on the offhand that he is really good, that would be great because DeAndre Swift, a lot of people are pretty nervous about DeAndre Swift this year, me included, but I feel like his pass catching ability makes him just safe enough because late in games you can just dump the ball off his way. So looking at our team right here, let me pull it up. Let's get Nick here. I apologize to anyone who can't see as well. I think next draft I'm just going to have to zoom in. I hope that I do a good enough job explaining what's happening on the screen so that you don't have to necessarily see it, but I do apologize. I wish there was a way to make this look much better. And there probably is zooming in, but then it looks a little bit messed up. So I'll try to work on it before next video. I do apologize if you have any complaints about this. So looking at the team, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers. So again, you want to exit the draft with more running backs than wide receivers. We're going to take another dart throw on a running back later on in the draft. Rashad Penny will never be a target. I'd rather have an actual Penny than draft this motherfucker, because every year people talk Rashad Penny up, talk about his college, talk about all this, how Chris Carson's washed up, and every single year Rashad Penny ends up getting hurt and he ends up doing nothing when he's healthy. So it's going to be another season of that. You better believe it. So we're back up on the board here. We're going to go with Phillip Lindsay. Now, this team's not going to be running the ball a lot at all, especially if Deshaun is not there. It's going to be bad news bears for the Houston Texans, but Phillip Lindsay might be a better running back than David Johnson, if I'm being honest with you. In the 13th round, fuck it, why not? This should be a committee backfield, but maybe Phillip Lindsay etches him out and he becomes the number one in this running back by-orgy. David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, and Mock Ingram. All right, so for those of you guys watching, I zoomed in now. Let me know if this looks better to you guys, and this is how the draft will always look now. But if you guys don't like this, I will retract back to the way it used to look. Just let me know down below. I don't notice too much of a difference, but maybe I'm just stupid. That's entirely possible as well. So looking at the draft board, after we made our pick of, who did we pick again? We picked Mr. Phillip Lindsay, Ryan Tannehill. It's so hard to find myself when I'm in the middle of the draft board because my microphone is like right on my pick. So after Phillip Lindsay was Ryan Tannehill, Jalen Waddle, Evan Ingram, Michael Pittman Jr., Carson Wentz, Jeff Wilson Jr., Cole Kmet, Tyler Bass, Buffalo Bills defense, Justin Fields, Deshaun Watson. So we need our kicker and our defense. First, we're going to go ahead and select our kicker, and we're going to go with Robbie Gould, the Gouldinator of the San Francisco 49ers. What's interesting, though, is normally in drafts, when people are just drafting kickers and defenses, now I don't even have anything to talk about, but now I do, because people have already drafted their kicker and defense. So after Robbie Gould came Big Ben Roethlisberger, Blake Jarwin, Anthony Fursker, Jameson Crowder, Ryan Suckup, Denver defense, Chiefs defense, and the Patriots defense. Blake Jarwin is definitely a super late round tight end that I'm with drafting, but he's one of those guys where you really punted the position and you just draft two tight ends late. Blake Jarwin should be the, tight end of that team for the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys should have a great offense, so I'm willing to do it. Anthony Fursker, if Julio didn't show up to town, I'd be all aboard the Fursker train. Choo-choo! But with Julio there, I'm kind of worried. But then I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about how it shouldn't matter at all because a lot of Furker's value will be in the end zone, which is something that Julio Jones doesn't take away from people. So maybe he will end up being fine, but I'm still a little bit nervous. I want to go with the Chargers defense again. You're going to want to draft the defense, play up against a shitty offense week 1, but I've not done that research just yet on the schedule for week 1. By the time we get into August, I will have a video out for you guys to watch. So the draft is now basically over. I'll talk about the draft picks at the end, but we're going to recap my team real quick. My starting quarterback is Matty Ice Baby. My wide receivers are D-Hop and Michael Thomas. My starting running backs are Ezekiel Elliott and Mike Davis. My tight end is Robert Tonyan. My flex is Julio Jones. My bench is comprised of Chase Claypool, Raheem Mostert, Ronald Jones II, Jamar Chase, Jamal Williams, Phillip Lindsay. My kicker is Robbie Gould, and my defense is the LA Chargers. So let me know what you thought about this roster construction, because it's certainly different to my normal hammer the running backs really early, because I just went with Zeke, and then I went with D-Hop, Michael Thomas, and Julio Jones. I think this team looks great. I'm very happy with how it ended up, so let me know if you guys like drafting this way. Let me know what your guys' normal strategy is. Again, I tell you guys not to necessarily go into the draft with a set-in-stone strategy, because if you're saying, you know what, I want to go no running back, and then, the receivers aren't falling, there's great running backs available, and then you feel like a fucking idiot because you're jamming the wide receiver button when you shouldn't. So make sure you don't go in the draft with a set-in-stone draft strategy. Go in there with a very open mind. So looking at the draft board after we made our pick, it was just a bunch of kickers and Gerald Everett. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you guys did end up enjoying this video, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. I would really appreciate it. And again, please let me know down below what you guys think about the new logo. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know down below. I love you guys all. Make sure you have a great rest of your guys' day. Stay safe and happy fucking Friday, y'all. It's the weekend, baby.